Hi, this is Josh with Retro TV One Tech, and today, as you can see behind me, I have this incredible pile of retro tech that was generously donated to me by Retro TV One viewer and Resort TV One resort hopper Jody. It was her late husband Jeff's collection, and she contacted me and wanted it to go to a fellow tech enthusiast that would really appreciate and enjoy it. And I definitely am going to appreciate and enjoy it. So a huge thank you to Jody, and I hope that I can bring honor to Jeff and his collection through these videos that I'm gonna make about it. And this is just the first video in the series about these computers and this amazing technology behind me. Of course, we'll do more in-depth videos on each piece of tech, test it out, and do all these things. We may plug in a couple of them today, but of course I won't have time to plug in everything that's behind me because that would take a couple hours. So we'll break it up into several different episodes so you can enjoy. But at least today I can unbox them, show them to you, and just show you the incredible collection, the incredible shape everything's in, and all the different things that are featured here. So I'm super excited, and as you're watching here, maybe you can start to identify some of the things that are behind me here. It's an incredible collection. I've said that several times, but I'm just really blown away by this generosity and by everything that's here. These were all things that were on my list and things that I wanted to check out for a long time, and now just in one fell swoop, they're all here in box and in incredible condition. So, all right, without any further ado, let's get started. And before we get too far into the video, definitely be sure to subscribe, hit the like button, hit the notification bell, leave me a comment if you had any of these amazing pieces of tech in your collection at one point, or if you still have them, let me know, or let me know if you're familiar with any of these. So first of all, let's just kind of take a quick look around the collection here. You can see on the left, we've got a Commodore 1702 monitor. In the middle, right about here, there is an Amiga monitor, which is really cool. That might not be readily evident here, but it's right behind the Amiga 500 in the box. Oh my goodness. And then another Commodore 1702 with a 1541 disk drive right above that. You've got two VIC-20s over there on the right, a Commodore 64, again the boxed Amiga 500, which is super rare, at least as far as I've searched eBay, a Commodore Plus 4, and spoiler alert, that one looks like it's almost never been used. I'm sure it has, but it's in that good a condition. We've got the Commodore 128 down there. Looks very similar to the Amiga 500, but not quite the same. And then we've got this box over here on the right, as well as a couple other odds and ends that we'll go through throughout the video. So I'm gonna get the table out, start putting some of these things on the table, and let's start checking them out. Where should we start? Have to decide. And we'll start with the Commodore 128. I've wanted one of these for a long time. This to me is a beautiful machine. It's a little bit yellow, but honestly, it's in really, really good condition. Now, I did power it on at Jody's house when I picked all this up. It does work. The keys are a little sticky, so they may need cleaning, you know, underneath and inside, but you can see it's a lot bigger than a Commodore 64. It's got this extra back here, whereas the Commodore 64, I think even the 64C stopped about right there. You can see different from the Amiga, it's got ports, power switch, reset button, all those things on the side. It does not have a disk drive included. You had to supply your disk drive, and on the back you've got your normal Commodore assortment of ports, but a little bit differently. First of all, you've got the cartridge port here, cassette port, your serial, your video, those are all the same. This is RF, so it would even connect to like a an RF adapter, just like an old Atari or even Commodore 64 would. Or again, you can connect it to the video, which will do composite and all those kind of things. But this is the new thing in the Commodore 128, the RGBI, which would connect to a 9-pin CGA or EGA monitor. And that would give you higher resolution and a lot cleaner and brighter display. So, and also use a separate video chip, and we'll go over this computer in depth. This computer was really interesting because it actually could run two monitors at the same time, one on this port and then one on one of these ports. And then you've got the user port, which was used to connect modems, RAM expansions, and all kinds of other stuff. So that's the Commodore 128 in a nutshell. It's in really, really great condition. You can see these keys. They have a nice sound to them. You've got cursor keys on the top, which is interesting, function keys, all kinds of cool stuff. And of course, the biggest difference too, besides the size, is the number pad over here. The Commodore 64 did not have that number pad, but that's nice to have if you're doing any kind of business software work. So that's the 128. Next up is this incredible Amiga 500. This is such a great example of this machine in the box here. I wanted to include this one next because you can tell, and you will be able to tell when I get it out, how similar it is in case design at least, to the Commodore 128. But look at this. It is in the box with the styrofoam inserts as well as the plastic around the case. It is just in pristine condition. And the Amiga 500 was a very well beloved machine because it was affordable. It is the same, computer and a keyboard design that the Commodore 64 and 128 and a lot of those other Commodore machines were, but you can see just how good a shape it's in. It is just an incredible example. So I've got it out of the bag here so you can take a closer look at it. You can see the Amiga logo there, molded into the case, the power and drive activity light. And speaking of drive, there was a 3.5-inch floppy on the side, but as you can see the equipment hanging out here, Jeff had it set up to connect an external floppy to USB adapter, which I can show you a little bit later, and so it makes it more makes it a little bit easier to load certain games. Now the ports on the Amiga are way different. The joystick is pretty much the same, and actually the mouse plugs into one of the joystick ports, and then you've got right and left audio, so stereo audio, disk drive port, so you can do an external disk drive if you want, serial port for any other type of connection I guess that you might need, a parallel port, I'm not sure if that was for a printer, probably, your power port, and then you've got your RGB video port, which is pretty cool, and there's actually adapters to connect that to composite, but we have an Amiga monitor, so we don't even need that, we just connect it straight to the monitor. But all these ports are proprietary Amiga except for the joysticks. So there's also a monochrome composite out, I believe, so you get, it even says mono, you get only the grayscale colors basically. So, and then on this side I don't think there's anything, nope. So anyway, beautiful machine. I never had one of these when I was younger, but I knew people that did. And you can tell they put the cursor keys in the traditional upside down T shape here, which is good, makes them a lot easier to use on games and things like that. So yeah, Amiga 500, really incredible. Let's look over here and see, I think the mouse is over here, I want to say, on this side. No, that's the power supply. Look at that power supply, it's huge. The mouse isn't in the box, but that's pretty incredible how big that power supply is. Up next, we have a very special Commodore VIC-20. You saw earlier there were two of them. This one is the oldest of the two, and I'll tell you why. First of all, you can see the serial number is really low there. 238992, not even to 1,000,000 yet, but here is what's really special about this computer. First of all, you can see it's in incredible condition here. Take out the wrap, and you've got some manuals in there that are in great condition as well. So let me move those aside for just a second. And people that really know VIC-20s will notice it right away, why this one's special. If you look at the keys, the font on the keys is the old PET style font, and I'll show you the other VIC-20 here in just a minute to show you the difference, but this is the old Commodore PET style font keys, and they use basically the same keycaps on these as they had on the Commodore PETs, because when they'd already been making the Commodore PET, they started actually using these same keycaps on the VIC-20 because it was easier to continue going on this. So this is a much older and much rarer VIC-20 than the standard ones. And so on the side, you get only one joystick port, an on-off switch, and then the power. And you can see it's also older because the power connector is just a two-prong, and you'll see the later one is a round, more of a DIN style. All right, now on the back, you'll see that the cartridge port right here is really wide. It's pretty insane, the big difference here. It's almost as wide as an old Famicom game. Now, don't get me wrong, they don't fit together. The old Nintendo Famicom and even Nintendo Entertainment System were about this wide. This one may even be wider. I don't know how many pins it has. And then you've got your serial, your video. They are not labeled, so you just have to look at the manual or know how many pins are in each one. You've got your cassette port and then your user port. Commodores have had a user port all the way back to the original PET, and it's the same too. And most of them are compatible. I'm not sure, I'd have to look that up. And the cassette ports are also compatible. So yeah, pretty incredible stuff. I know I've said incredible a lot. Maybe I'll have to put Mr. Incredible as the logo of this video, but anyway. And you can hear the keys have that nice satisfying click to them. And the badge is in really good shape as well, showing VIC-20 on the top there. Nothing on this side, of course, but wow. What an amazing, I'm going to say amazing instead of incredible, just really great specimen of this VIC-20. So clean. and you can see the guide to the VIC-20, and these manuals were really good. It's, you know, 'cause people didn't know anything about computers, so you can see it's very friendly. It's got a lot of animations and word bubbles, not animations, but it's got a lot of characters drawn, word bubbles, and things like that. So, you know, as you type VIC-20 and then go to 1, and then you type in RUN run, and then it does this infinite loop, of course. So anyway, wow, really amazing to have this, and in such good shape. It looks like it's barely been used at all. There's also the Programmer's Reference Guide, which gives you a little bit more in-depth and detailed guide to what kind of programs you can create with the VIC-20. So basic Programmer's Reference Guide. You can see all these example programs in here. Let's see what some of these later things. Machine Language Programming Guide. So that's where you get really advanced. And you can program much more advanced programs on machine language. It talks about memory maps and stuff way beyond my skill level, but it's pretty interesting to see it anyway. So that's the VIC-20 with the PET style keys. So here's the other VIC-20. It's also in a box. It looks like this box is a little bit more beat up. It's still completely there. And you can see we actually boxed a joystick. They didn't come with a joystick, but it was a good place to put it. It kind of fit in there nicely. So here's the joystick. And has the Atari connector port there, which would work, and it actually is a Commodore branded joystick, so that's pretty cool. And you can see I had to tell you these things are so stiff, these joysticks, and actually the fact that it is stiff means it's in pretty good shape. And then only one firing button, so it kind of limited the type of games that you could make for this computer. And then again, another manual with this one, so really lucky that these had the manuals included here. And then of course you can see the computer itself, and already you can see the difference between the font on these keys and the font on the PET style VIC-20. Also, you can see there's a rainbow label on this one, and if you rewind a little bit, you'll see the other VIC-20 had the silver style label, so that's an older style label. Commodore 64 had the same thing. So anyway, if you look at the font, you can see these are much more compact letters. They're not as blocky as the ones on the PET style. The function keys are basically the same, and you can see the power connector here, if I can get close enough where you can see it. There it is. You can see the power connector right here is the rounded type. There, it's focused on it. And the power switch is different. It's vertical, goes up and down instead of left and right like the other one, and the joystick port's the same. But you've got this round DIN style power connector instead of just the 2-prong. So that's pretty interesting. And then the back is exactly the same. Cartridge port, all the other things back here that I showed on the other VIC-20. So that's not different. But those were some of the differences I just pointed out. And we'll do more in-depth comparisons of the two machines on another video, but this is a great looking VIC-20. I get one more shot of it with the ultra-wide lens so you can see it a little better. Kind of going back and forth on lenses here with the camera on the tripod just to make sure I get everything in the picture. And another thing I want to point out is that this one has some of the original documentation with it. So you can see Commodore user support publications, lots of cool stuff like that. I'm not sure what this is, probably like a bill of sale or something. I don't know. Have to pull it up. All right, I got it unfolded here. This is a basic program. Copyright 1979. Wow. That is just crazy. That looks like a very complicated program to me. I don't know what it's doing, but wow. Commodore VIC-20 price list. VIC-20 and the Commodore data set here. The VIC 1540 disk drive was the one that came before the 1541, of course. It was used mostly on the VIC modem, joystick. It doesn't have any prices on it. That's what's interesting, unless I'm missing it somewhere. Interface cartridges, then it has a list of games here. Let's see what's on the back here. Product shipping specifications. So it's like a little catalog, basically, like a really old school catalog. That's pretty cool to see. So there's just a few games listed on here, not a lot. This may be something that, this may be something that only included the Commodore branded games, and maybe the third-party games weren't on there, but wow. And the rest of that was warranty information and things like that. So let's move on to the next machine. Up next, we've got this absolutely pristine example of a Commodore Plus 4. Now this one came after the Commodore 64, but before the 128 as far as I understand. And it had a completely different processor and architecture. None of the Commodore 64 software was compatible with it at all. But it was something that was aimed at business, and you can see the packaging is a lot more serious than the other packaging that we'll see, and especially on the Commodore 64 being more aimed as a family machine and games machine. This one was aimed at business, and we could do a whole documentary on this one because there's a long story behind it. And the creator of this computer, one of the architects of this system, Bill Hurd, actually has his own YouTube channel and tells the story way better than I would since he actually lived it. But this is one that is in really great shape. Look, it's got all of the manuals and things with it. So all these different things, get the most out of your Commodore computer. You got registration guides. Important, this is your unit registration. I wonder what would happen if I mailed it. Oh wait, Commodore doesn't exist anymore. That's sad. All right, let's see what else we have here. Now you can get the most popular software programs in one convenient package. Wow, do tell. Here's the software that needs no build-up. All the productivity and all those things. Yeah, so see, it's all about office work, productivity. Oh, introduced in the Commodore VIC-20, the Commodore Plus 4. Interesting, because we already have the computer, so I guess it just tells you what they built into it. That's pretty cool though. So here is the user's guide, user's manual for the Plus 4. Again, it really looks brand new, like it hardly has been touched or used at all. It does, however, have joysticks for it, even though we don't have those. They're pretty rare because they have a different type of connector. That's how it shows the modems, the disk drive, printer. Of course, with it being an office machine, a printer shows different ways to connect it. Get it plugged in. Even in an office, I would doubt that people were plugging TVs into them, but you never know. So lots of cool information there. And then there's a book just about the integrated software. So there's software, like I mentioned, burned into the ROM on this computer. So it's actually a program that's already stored. Remember, none of these computers had hard drives or any other way of storing data besides RAM, which is the memory that we still have on our phones and computers now. But RAM is erased every time you turn the device off, or close a program, or clear a program, all those things. But ROM is permanently burned, just like an old video game cartridge. The data never changes. So they've got programs burned into ROM on this computer. So anyway, let's get it out. But again, you can see it's still in the original plastic, and it's super cool to see it all wrapped up like this. There it is. Look at that. I mean, I'm sure it's been used, but it doesn't look like it's been used very much. These weren't super popular at the time. They're actually more popular now. You can see the function keys at the top are much smaller, but it does have the 4 cursor keys, which could be helpful if you are doing, like spreadsheets or word processing and you need to move the cursor around, because obviously there was no mouse on this one. I think eventually there probably was a mouse available somehow, but you can see the power switch and the reset button. The earlier Commodore machines did not have a reset button, so these did, so that was a good advantage here. And we've got, I believe, the user port, the power. This is a cassette port. So this one says it's serial. This user port, cartridge, joysticks, and this must be the video port by process of elimination. Nothing on this side. Well, I take that back. You've got your RF port, so you can still connect an RF modulator to connect to a TV, and then here's your channel select right here. So that is the Commodore Plus 4, and it is a very, very nice looking example. I've always wanted one of these because just got such a fascinating story behind them. They were actually meant as this business computer, and ended up being played more with games and things like that. They were really too expensive at the time for what they offered. So anyway, the Commodore Plus 4. So here we are at the Commodore 64. So I already have one of these, and our friend Dan fixed it for me, but I thought it'd be nice to have 2 of them, and this one does work. So actually this one I will power up and get turned on and maybe play one game with here in just a second. But let's go through and look at the box here on this one. It's a really nice example of this system as well. And you can see the manuals here, Commodore 64 User's Guide. You've got the also the Programmer's Reference Guide, which I don't think I have with my other computer. So again, very, very detailed look at how to program the machine. So that's pretty cool. And then you've got a power supply. I'll probably use my own power supply when I plug it in, just because these power supplies can damage these computers. Lots of different cords to get them plugged into the monitors and things like that. And the computer itself. So this one doesn't have all of the inserts and packaging like mine does, but still's in really, really good shape. You can see it's clean. It's maybe a little bit brown, but not bad at all. It's basically the correct color. You can see the side here on the C64, 2 joystick ports, power connector, power switch, power connector. On this side, you've got the cartridge port, and then the VIC-20 cartridge port was made smaller, so you got your RF equipment here. And this one, RF adapter, and then the channel select. You got your video and serial ports here. You've got the cassette port and the user port on this one. So yeah, so Commodore 64, you guys are pretty familiar. It's a pretty familiar machine. A lot of people had these. I never had one, now I have 2. So that's pretty amazing. So let's go ahead and get one of these 1702 monitors up here, get this thing connected and fire it up and see what it'll do. Alright, so here is one of the Commodore 1702 monitors. This one doesn't have the bottom panel here, but you can see all the controls and things down here. And we control, like, you know, brightness, color, contrast, V-hold, things like that to keep it from jumping. And this monitor is really cool because it's got front inputs where you've got your video and your audio composite, and then it's also got inputs on the back, which is what we will be using. Look at it from the side. It's also got a speaker on the top. You can see the speaker grill up there, and little carrying handles on it, which is really nice. And as we come around here on the back, you can see how it's plugged in a little bit differently than a standard composite. Here you can see audio, Luma, and Chroma. So this is the precursor to S-Video, meaning that the color and the black and white are separated, the Luma and the Chroma. And so you've also got signal select front and rear. So obviously we're selected to rear right now. And there you can see the back of the monitor and how everything is hooked up. So let's give this thing a shot. And I want to say also how extremely excited I am to have this monitor, because I've wanted one of these for a long time. They had these at school when I was growing up in the library and all those things, and it's just super cool to have one of these and to be able to show it off here and to try it out. So let's get it turned on. All right, we'll turn on the monitor first. It'll probably flicker somewhat. Hopefully I've got it set right. If not, we'll make some adjustments, but either way, let's get the computer powered up and we will enjoy some BASIC, hopefully. Here we go. There it goes, look at that. There we go. I got the tripod adjusted a little bit more, but you can see how clear it is on this monitor like this. All right, so let's try our BASIC program here. Oops. Let's see. Gotta learn how to type on this. There we go. Yes, that is exactly what we want. And of course you can kind of see it refreshing at the bottom. And then I hit run stop, break in 10. There we go. Isn't that beautiful? Like, first of all, I've been waiting so long to have a working Commodore 64. Tried so hard to fix the other one. Dan finally got it fixed. But I also have this one and a monitor that makes it look absolutely incredible. So we're going to try one of my favorite games on it here in just a second. So I showed this last time, but this is an SD to IEC. It's a cartridge which takes an SD card here in the top, and it allows you to connect it to the computer. You've got the serial port here, and then the cartridge actually allows it to be a fast loader. Commodores were notorious for loading slow because of some bugs when the system was created, and I won't go into all that, but the cartridge bypasses the slow loading and makes that better, and this is the serial that actually transfers the data. So a lot of people might think that the SD card data goes through the cartridge, but it actually doesn't. So let me get this ready to go, and we'll try one of my favorite games. All right, we got it ready to go. Let's give it a shot. We're going to turn it back on. All right, and you can see it says fast load. I've got the screen pretty well so the refresh rates are synced. It's not going to be perfect. You see the line every once in a while through the screen, but it's not too bad. Okay, so in order to load this from the SD card, we're going to load star, which is the main program on the SD card, and we're going to say -8 because that's the drive number that it emulates. Commodore's had drive numbers. If you just put that without the load, without the number 8 there, it would try and load from a cassette port, which isn't there. Now, even when it loads it, it doesn't do anything. You actually have to type run, which was so different than an IBM or an MS-DOS, because you just type the program name and hit enter. So that was something I always had to get used to. But we run this, and we end up with this really, really cool utility menu here, and it will show us all the things that we want to see here. So I'm going to try the program directory here. Maybe. Looks like it's loading it. Fingers crossed. Oh yeah, it's doing it. Those bars around the screen might look like it's breaking, but actually it means it's loading the program. It's like the CPU working. Yeah. Listen to that. It's really, you know, for the time period, of course it sounds primitive now, but it's really great music. Of course, you can hear the distortion in it, which was normal as part of the sound. This computer only had 3 voices in the sound chip, but it's using each voice for several different instruments. Isn't that awesome? Alright, I'm going to grab a joystick and try this out. Alright, so I'm going to use the this Commodore joystick that we had earlier. It'll actually work with Atari joysticks, but let's see if this one works too. Yep, looks like it's going to work just fine. Not the easiest to use, but should have used the Atari one, but at least you can see kind of what's going on. Button's not the easiest to push. These old games are hard, man. I'm just going to, like, run. Can I, like, there we go. Yay, I made the guy free. Look out for the bombs. Okay. Yeah, this is, like, hard. At least collision detection isn't great, so I keep running into the bad guys, but it isn't killing me, and that's good. I almost got to the end of this the other day. Let's see if I can do it. I'm just gonna keep running. Oh, now I gotta get all these guys as they come out. Ambush! Oops, they're showing bombs at me. Ah! Yes! Look out, look out. Okay, can I go in there? No? Maybe? Not? Okay, there we go. Whoa! I don't think I've ever done that before. Yeah, I literally haven't ever done that before. Oh, now it gets harder. Alright. I probably got to stop playing this, but that was super fun. I see I died. Alright. Alright. I think we're good now. That was so awesome. I can't believe I beat the first level. These earlier games are so hard. Like, you know, you could probably practice and get better, but there you go. Isn't that awesome? Alright, I got to enter my name. Or my initials. Oh wait, I can enter my whole name. Look at that. So much fun with the joystick, right? First place! Oh my goodness! I love how one of the names is the dude. Alright, so let's see the rest of these computers here. I just wanted to at least show one game because it wouldn't be fun if we didn't play anything the whole time. So, there you go. Commando. One of my favorite games on the C64. Just so epic. Alright, well that was a lot of fun, and some of you may have wondered why I didn't use my 1541 disk drive to load Commando on there, and I could have. I don't think I have Commando on disk, so I could have loaded some of the programs that that they sent, or that I was able to get with this amazing collection from Jody. But I didn't want to get the disk drive hooked up and everything else, but this is a perfect example of a 1541 disk drive. This was the disk drive used on Commodore computers, Commodore 64 computers specifically. You can tell it matches the color scheme of the 64 that we just looked at, and a little scuffed up on top, but not bad at all. And it's also got 2 serial ports, because you can actually hook up one drive to the computer and then you hook up the next drive to this one, so it kind of like creates a daisy chain, and there's a standard power output, same power input I should say, that a modern computer uses now, so that hasn't changed much. Then you've got the on-off switch. And this was actually almost like a separate computer by itself. It had its own 6502 based processor, just like the Commodore 64 did, so that's pretty cool. But anyway, neat to see this. I did test it when I was at Jody's house, and it does work, so I'll put this on a new and a separate video to show you how that works as well. We don't want to do it all in one video, like I said. And here is the incredible musical keyboard. This is an overlay for the Commodore 64 keyboard to basically make it into a piano, and you can see there how that would work. Here's the different notes from the keyboard, and you can see the cutout for the function keys and the space bar, and that's how that would go on a Commodore 64 keyboard. So that's pretty cool. And those are pretty rare. Actually, I haven't really seen these very much, especially not in a box. So, and the software did come with it as well. I'm not going to go through all the discs that she gave me because that would take a long time, but we'll go through that in a separate video. But there were a lot of discs in Jeff's collection as well. And these are really cool. Goretek and the Microchips, learning programming with this friendly robot character named Goretek. I don't know much about this. Some other people had told me when they saw this, the picture that I put out, that I would enjoy learning about Goretek, and Liam might learn and enjoy as well. And you can see the cassette tapes are there for the program. So you would run this from a data set, which we have in the other box. I'll show you in just a bit. But yeah, you'd run that from the Commodore cassette deck, and you can see title page there. Beyond the oblivion of all numbers, so far in the galaxy, and even further on the planet of syntax. I love it. Syntax is like the way you type things in into the computer. Goretek slid wearily into his service bay. That's pretty cool. So yeah. Anyway, so it's a really neat, like a storybook basically about programming. So Microchips manual. Here's an example of how you might record your round. That's interesting. Wow. So. And here is soccer program. So this is really pretty cool. We'll definitely have to look through this, and it's a perfect example of it in the box. I'm sure this is pretty hard to find as well. So really incredible part of the collection here. And then an introduction to BASIC part 1. And so the same type of a thing. You can see it's got a nice, ooh, that's even a thicker, like a way thicker book there, because this is probably meant more towards adults teaching themselves. That other one looks like it's more based on, family or kid based, but experiments. Ooh, I just heard it. I just saw a thing that if the train left the station, I don't even want to do that. I have nightmares about if the train left the station programs. But anyway, or problems, I should say. If 2 trains left Boston and New York and whatever, traveling at 65 miles an hour, yeah, I don't know. All right, and there's the tapes that go with it. All right, so let's check out some of this other great stuff. All right, so here's the Amiga monitor. I love how it has a little smiley face up here. You can see the Amiga logo with the check mark there, and this is a perfect example of this monitor. Really, really nice. It has all the different bells and whistles on it, and even all the controls and everything. Here, the door is still there. It hasn't broken off, which is nice because a lot of them have on various computers and systems broken off. You can see as I get it turned around here. You can see the ports and stuff on the back. There you go. So it's got composite, basically audio, video, and chroma, if you want to separate out. So this actually would work with the Commodore 64 as well. So that's pretty cool. Or the 128 or anything like that. And actually there's RGB input. So this would work with the Commodore 128, and it would be able to do both signals. So that's pretty cool too, because remember I said the Commodore 128 has the composite and the RGB. So this would do both. Also at the top, it's got a Dell product key for Windows XP. That's pretty random and cool. All right, so this was a shoebox with basically Amiga parts to it. Now this is something that could be used on any computer, basically, that has a floppy disk controller on it. There's the floppy disk IDE type interface there with the power connector, 4-pin power connector, and you can see you can plug a USB stick into that. So a USB thumb drive, it's Gotek. This is pretty standard floppy to USB emulator here. So it basically emulates a floppy, and it sends floppy drive type signals back to the computer. So the computer really thinks it's reading a floppy drive, but of course you've got the full memory of like several gigabytes on a USB thumb drive. So that's pretty cool. Of course that won't go into the computer, so it kind of hangs out outside You can see another power supply. That is a, looks like that's the 1541 power supply. No, probably not actually. Not sure which one that is. The 1541 just had a cord in the back of it, so I'll have to look up which power supply that is. Here is the cord that we use for the Amiga monitor, and here is the Amiga monitor cable. You can see it's got several more pins that come out of the computer, and then it condenses them down into this 9-pin RGB connector here. And then if you want to use RF or composite on an Amiga computer, you can actually get one of these. So this is, let me turn it over so you can see it better. This is composite audio in and audio out, but it plugs into the video port on the back of the Amiga, and this does all the conversion. It's an Amiga 520, so that's pretty important if you want to have some flexibility in how you plug in your computer, your Amiga computer to be exact there. And this is the Amiga mouse. So pretty cool to see that. I don't know if that's an official Amiga mouse or not, but it is the right connector because as you can see here, it has a 9-pin, is that 9? I'm not sure. Yeah, it is 9. The 9-pin Atari connector. So this won't work on an Atari computer, but it plugs into the same Atari style joystick port. All right, and surprisingly, we are almost at the end of this incredible collection. I've got a few more things that I'll show you in another video. There is a whole collection of Compute Gazette magazines and several other retro magazines that we can go over in a separate episode, but I don't want this one to get too long. But you've got a perfect example here of a 1702 monitor with smiley face and the whole flip down panel to cover the controls. So that's pretty nice, and it looks really nice on top and around the side and everywhere else. So there you go. So that is a great example of a Commodore 1702 monitor. I'd never thought I'd have one of these, let alone two. So let's take a look at what's in this box right here. What's in the box? All right, first of all, we have an Apple Newton message pad here. So that's pretty interesting. This is, of course, way before any of the Apple products that most people are familiar with. There we go. Finally figured out how to open it. You got to push this little thing to open it here. And there it is. Apple Newton. You can see my reflection there. Hello. But it's a pretty neat piece of tech. You can see the menus down there. I don't have batteries in it. It's not plugged in or anything like that, but still really neat little device. And it also has a little stylus. It comes out. I'm not going to take it all the way out, but you can see that. So that's pretty neat. I don't know if it works. I don't know much about it, so I'll have to do like a separate video on this. You can see it's got a place for batteries, things like that. Let's make sure there are no batteries in there. Actually, I'm sure Jeff would have taken them out, and yes, he did. So there are no batteries. Of course, you never leave batteries in anything like this that's going to be sitting around for a while, because batteries can explode and will explode and ruin things. So this is a perfect shape, and just like the rest of Jeff's awesome collection, it has been maintained perfectly. So next, out of the box, a Timex Sinclair 1000. Look at this tiny little thing. Isn't it cute? Like literally, it's almost about the size of my hand, and I don't even have that big of hands. So obviously, as you can tell, typing on this is pretty difficult. It's a membrane keyboard, so similar to what you might have on your microwave. So there's no actual moving keys at all, and it's not a touch either. It's pressure sensitive. But this was a very cheap computer, like $50 at the time, and it was meant to get the computer out to everyone. Because remember, $50 was a lot more in that time period. So there's the cartridge port right there. And then I believe over here would be the RF output. And then the earphone and the microphone jack, that's for cassette. And then 9-volt DC. So I'm not going to try this one out. I want to do a little more research on this one. I think I have the right power adapter, 9 volts and all that, but I want to double check all that so that I don't break anything. But definitely looks really cool. And we also have the user manual for the Timex Sinclair 1000. So maybe I should read the book. Anyway, it shows you how to hook it all up. Actually doesn't look that hard to use. So it talks about programs and all kinds of things. This is not quite as user-friendly of a manual, but it definitely tells you a little bit how to program. So that's pretty neat. What else do we have in here? We've got this Commodore dataset. So this was Commodore's tape deck, tape player, recorder, all the things, you could actually take and record and save and load programs to these. And it just took regular cassette tapes, so that was pretty convenient. These were much more popular at the beginning than floppy drives because you could just go to the store and buy cassette tapes. Obviously, eventually you could go to the store pretty regularly, like even Walmart, and buy floppy disks. But at first, you had to go to a computer store. They were expensive, so tapes were a lot cheaper. They were also a lot slower. You could store a lot of data on a tape, but you had to play the tape to get the data out of it. So the good thing about this was all power and tape controls and everything. You just push play on the tape and this would completely control it, stop, go, all the things. So this was the power adapter as well. So that's one example of Commodore data set, and there's another one down here too, but we'll go through these a little bit at a time. Here's a really interesting looking joystick there. TAC2, it kind of has like a Star Wars look to it. That's pretty awesome. All right, and here might be easier just to lift you up here. This is, you can see some VIC-20 games here. Pirates Cove, Radar Rat Race. So we can definitely have to plug those in and try them at some point. Gorf, you know, that's a pretty famous game. What else is in here? The Sky is Falling. So I don't have to unpack the whole thing. Seawolf, and then you can see another Commodore dataset in here that's even in better shape than the one that was on top. So two tape players like that. What's this one? This is Nabber Shape Grabber. And there's like one on the bottom that doesn't work, they said. So in the bag is a Nintendo 64 controller. That's cool. Never can have too many of those. And got some games in here. Demon Attack. It's pretty cool. That's a cartridge as well, but in the box. So that's fun. iMagic. And looks like VIC-20 Penultimate cartridge. We've got one of those in here somewhere. The Penultimate cartridge has basically several games on it and several different ways of working with the computer to make it even better. This is interesting. This is a Super Nintendo to USB adapter. That's pretty cool. We got Speed Bingo Math. We have looks like a TV to game adapter, then RF modulator basically. So there's that. The VIC-20 8K memory expander in the box. So that gives the VIC-20 only had 3 kilobytes, or I guess 5 kilobytes of memory, technically 3 free. So that gave it 8 more. That's pretty cool. And then here we've got a modem. Check that out. Look at that. We've got, first of all, we got the VIC modem for the VIC-20, and we got a Commodore 1200 baud modem as well. So that's 1200 bits per second. It's pretty slow. So, but that's how it was. And you hooked your phone line into there, and you could have an input and an output, so you could have both phones in there. There's even got dip switches probably to change different options and things, and that would go into the user port. Let's see, over here you've got Sargon 2 Chess, Super Smash, Adventureland, all the fun things in here. Oh my goodness, like I said, I don't want to mess up the organization here too much. Oh, and there's a freeload. So that's probably kind of like a fast load. And this down here at the bottom is the Penultimate cartridge for the VIC-20. So that's pretty awesome to see. There's another Amiga mouse. I wonder if that's an original. Nope, looks like another. Maybe they didn't have logos on them or anything. So anyway, incredible stuff in all these boxes. I can't wait to try it all out, do videos about it. I'm going to have videos on this channel about all this stuff for a long, long time. So definitely stay tuned for all of the fun. Well, all right, everybody, that's all for now for this amazing retro haul unboxing. Super excited, and a huge thank you again to Jody and her late husband Jeff for collecting all these amazing things and keeping them in such great shape so that we can share them with thousands of people on the internet. And so excited to be able to do that and just to play with this, share with you all the stories behind these incredible pieces of technology that really built the future of what we're enjoying today on our smart devices. You know, if it wasn't for the Commodore 64, the VIC-20, all these older computers, you know, you wouldn't have iPhones and things like this that are so advanced. Of course, this iPhone is, you know, more powerful by several hundred times than anything sitting here even combined together. But it wouldn't have even been possible without all this incredible retro tech. So a huge thank you to Jody for entrusting us with this amazing collection. And I really am just excited to dig into it even more. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please be sure to subscribe if you enjoyed this. Also check out our other channel, Resort TV 1, where we post most of our Disney videos and things like that. So thank you again for watching, and we'll see you on the next one. So for now, enjoy that tech and keep it retro.